What's up, everybody? Welcome to Morbid Curator Podcast. I'm your host, RotKorpse. It's comic book week again, and we're going to be talking about Venom #1, written by Donny Cates and artist Ryan Stegman. But before we get to that, I'm just curious on if any of my followers are metalheads, because I'm a huge metalhead, and I'm very, very excited to say one of my favorite bands, if not my favorite band, Dying Fetus, has came out with a brand new single called Compulsion for Cruelty. It's been probably 5 years since Wrong One to Fuck With their latest album came out, and this single was brutal as fuck. If I have any metalheads, I encourage you to listen to Dying Fetus and listen to this single because it's awesome. I've been listening to them for years and they never disappoint. And speaking of fucking metalheads, Donny Cates, probably the most metal writer in comics. And you can tell by his work how metal he is. Even in this issue, he's very brutal with how he writes. And you get him and Ryan Stegman together, and it's like the perfect duo. This book is really awesome. It starts out with Eddie having a nightmare. And these men, these soldiers, are like trying to push back this giant drawbridge door, from opening. There's what looks like a symbiote substance trying to come through, and the soldiers are screaming. They're saying, hold it back, hold it, it's a demon. And it's cool because Eddie's narrating this whole time, and he's saying that the dream isn't his, that it belongs to his shadow, and which he's referring to his symbiote. And then in the dream, these men are like getting eaten by this beast. It kind of shows like it shows a mouth opening and the men going into his mouth. And then there's just a huge thunder crack and lightning, and it wakes Eddie up, and he's in his New York apartment. Eddie's talking to the symbiote, and the symbiote asks Eddie, did he see that monster? And Eddie says, yeah, I saw the monster, but dude, I didn't know that we could have nightmares. The symbiote says, me either. And the symbiote can kind of tell that there's something wrong with Eddie. And there's just something off with him. He's actually scared. Eddie seems scared. And the symbiote asks him, like, what's wrong? And Eddie says it was just the dream. The symbiote knows that he's lying. A few minutes later, Eddie's walking up to the bathroom, and you can see him starting to take some pills. And it's really cool because at this point in the book, you can tell that there's something really dark mentally going on for Eddie. And you don't really see this often in, Venom books or with Eddie, that how dark, his mind can get. So he's just trying to like quiet his brain. He wants his brain to just shut off. He don't want to hear the symbiote talking to him. He doesn't want to hear the voice, the voices in his head. He just wants everything to shut up, and so he can finally just think. And it's awesome because you can see the symbiote voice, because he's saying, don't do this, we're better than this. And it's cool, you can see his voice like slowly fading away as the pills are kicking in. And once there is no more voices in Eddie's head, Eddie mentions that he doesn't know what's wrong with his symbiote. Like he says that, like he says it's like broken, or it's losing its mind, and it's scaring Eddie. Like for the first time in a long time, Eddie is scared of the symbiote. And as he's walking out of the bathroom, he hears the scanner going off, and he hears the policeman on the scanner mentioning a lantern freak, like some lantern guy, and they're asking for immediate backup. But then Eddie goes on to say that he needs to figure out what's going on with his symbiote before he gets into any type of trouble. He doesn't really plan on fighting anything. He just kind of wants to help out where he needs, but he's nervous that, you know, there's something wrong with his symbiote, and he can tell. He doesn't want to risk people's lives. He doesn't want to kill innocent people, so he's kind of just gonna see what's going on with the scanner, or, you know, with what the policemen are talking about, and then that's about it. And he mentions that he's been watching this jack-o'-lantern guy for a while. And the next scene, it shows jack-o'-lantern talking to a few other like criminals, and he's talking about how the webhead won't see this coming. And what, you know, he's talking about Spider-Man, but he has some Norman Osborn like high-tech weapons, or so he says. He's saying to these other criminals that Norman Osborn made these weapons, but they're not really buying it. And he says, "No, man, like these were, you know, used on Green Goblin's on Norman Osborn's glider." And as soon as he says that, the cops like surround the whole warehouse that they're in, and it just shows Eddie just staring down at him, and he's hoping he's happy that the cops are there to bust them, but he personally would rather be down there, you know, beating their ass and stuff. But he's also glad that he's not, because he's worried about what the symbiote is doing and what's going on with it. So he's just still spectating at this point. But then the jack-o'-lantern escapes the police officer and actually shoots one of them. And it's a real badass panel, because you just see like the blood squirting off of them, and it's just real brutal. It's cool. The artwork and it's awesome. The jack-o'-lantern dude looks like really, really awesome. And at this point, Eddie, you know, he's kind of arguing with the symbiote in his head that he doesn't need to get involved, and the symbiote just pretty much laughs at him, and they light up as Venom. And it shows this awesome badass panel of Venom like standing over this dude. You know, the jack-o'-lantern's mask came off. You just see the human face underneath, and you just see Venom standing over him. And it's a real badass scene, because it's like it's dark, and they're like in this alley, and it's raining, and lightning is behind them, and it's just a real cool panel. And the jack-o'-lantern dude is begging for his life. He doesn't want to die, and he notices that it's Venom, so he pretty much knows he's fucked at this point. He's begging for him to stop. And at that point, Venom takes his finger and gouges his eye out. And dude, it's so awesome. It's so brutal. It's one of the coolest scenes in this book, if not my favorite scene in the book. And a fun fact for you guys, I guess Donny Cates actually, when he first sent it to Marvel and stuff, he had it where both of his eyes were getting gouged out, but they didn't go with that, so they sent it back to him, and Donny sent it back with one eye being gouged out, and they approved it. And it's super badass. It's almost more brutal with the one finger, because like I've heard Donny say before, it's brutal because you can see the other eye like staring at Venom in Venom's eye as he's getting his eye gouged out, and it's kind of just like a fucked up scenario, and it's super brutal and badass. And then the police officers start shooting at Venom, and it kind of shows Venom getting shot at, and he turns around, and he's got a red dragon on his suit now, and a big spiral on his head. And I've read Absolute Carnage and King in Black, and it tells you about all of this, and I'm not going to spoil it for you guys, because this is such a badass book that I want all of you to go read it and get hip to all of the Venom run and Absolute Carnage run and the King in Black run. because it's very worth it. It's so awesome. So I'm not going to spoil that for you guys. So at this point in the book, you don't know why he's got this possessed look to him, but he does, and he's speaking in some ancient language. And Eddie is saying, he's like narrating, and he's saying, "Man, I hope these guys kill us before we kill them," because he's still Eddie doesn't want to kill any innocent people. That's the symbiote in his head that is the raging killer. So he's hoping that they kill him first, and so they shoot like this explosive at his head, and it blows up. And Eddie, his vision's real blurry, and he looks up and he sees this man walking to him, and the man says, "You're coming with me, Flash Thompson." And Eddie kind of blacks out after he says that, and wakes up in a warehouse, and the guy mentions, is the heat good enough for your symbiote or something like that. Basically, he's making it known that he knows about symbiotes, and Eddie gets the vibe that he knows about them. So then he asks him what he wants from him. The guy mentions that he's Rex Strickland, and he used to have a symbiote also, and he tells Eddie that Eddie wasn't the first guy with a symbiote, and there's many others, and Rex and a few buddies were hired to kill for the government as these symbiote soldiers. And the antipsychotics are like wearing off. So Eddie, and he's tied up, and he's like, "Dude, like, what do you want from me?" Rex says, "Do you know about Project Rebirth?" And Eddie says, "Yeah, that's the military program that made Captain America and used his other half, which Eddie refers to his symbiote as his other half. So that's what he's talking about. So they used his other half with Flash Thompson to make a super soldier." And Rex is like, "Yeah, but that's not all." And I guess that's when he mentions that he and his other buddies were also super soldiers and were killing for the government, but they became permanently bonded with the symbiote. So, and the government didn't need him anymore, so they froze him. And at this point, Rex asks Eddie, like, "Do you even know anything about your symbiote? Like, has he had any other hosts? Like, what temperature does he like? Does he prefer humans?" He's just asking about him. And then he ends up saying that he can fix Eddie, and asked if he's had any nightmares lately. And this really kind of hits Eddie. He's like, "Dude, how do you know all this? What do you need from me?" And Rex says, "Those guys that are frozen, they're good men. And he doesn't want them to die. The government's going to get a hold of them because they don't need them and kill them, and he doesn't want that for them." And then Eddie agrees to help, and he agrees because he wants to. Not only does he want to help save the innocent men, but he also wants to figure out like what's going on with his symbiote. Like maybe he can get some answers along the way. So he's down for the trip. And shortly after this, Eddie's in like this alleyway, and these big armored trucks are coming towards him, and he can hear them talking about how they're just gonna, the people in the armored truck are like, "Let's just run this guy over. He's just a hobo anyway. Like we're gonna, we'll be doing the world a favor if we just mow this guy over." And Eddie hears this and asks his symbiote if he, "Did you hear that?" And they're like, "Yeah." So they both agree to take these guys out, basically, and they're feeling good. Like, as Venom, they're not feeling how they did with the police officer scene earlier, where they were possessed. So they're feeling pretty good, and they decide together, let's take care of these bad men. So they, the trucks are coming at them, and Venom lowers his shoulder into the truck, and you see these men flying out the windshield, and it's a badass panel also, dude. I know I've been saying this a lot, but dude, Ryan Stegman, dude, I cannot express enough how badass this dude is. Like, if you just gotta see his work to believe it. It's so good. So they get up and walk towards the other trucks, and they see these possessed symbiotes, like a group of them coming out of the trucks, and they're speaking that same ancient language that that possessed Venom was doing earlier. They were dealing with the police officers, and the symbiote, Eddie's symbiote, like, leaves his body for some reason. Like, it just the symbiote is just pulling off of his skin, and just leaves. And Eddie is like, holy shit, man, I feel small, I feel vulnerable, like, come back. Like, he's begging for the symbiote to come back and save him and help him, because all of these possessed symbiotes are coming at him, and what's he gonna do? He's just a human. That's the whole point of this. He's, under the suit, he's just human, and he's struggling with a lot of mental stuff, and he needs the symbiote's help. And a few minutes later, this his symbiote comes back, and he's like, I'm sorry, Eddie, I'm very sorry. We didn't want to leave you. We were forced to. Our minds, like, forced us to. So that was kind of weird. It's like, it wasn't the symbiote's decision. It kind of was forced to. So that's kind of cool to know. And after they become Venom again, they walk towards the truck, and they notice that all of the possessed symbiotes are just a bunch of human corpses now, and all of the symbiotes have been, like, ripped off of them, and they're just dead corpses. And Eddie's talking to the symbiote, and is like, dude, what is going on? And he asks the symbiote, what did they say? The ancient language, what did they say earlier? It's the same thing that the possessed Venom said. And the symbiote says, God is coming. And it just ends like that. And dude, man, it makes you want to pick up issue number 2, like, right now. Because it just leaves you wondering, why are these guys possessed? Why was Venom possessed? Why, what is going on? Why does what's up with the spiral? What's up with the red dragon logo that Venom ended up getting? And there's so many questions, and I promise you they all get answered. You just got to read, get through all of them, and they're not hard to get through because they're so entertaining and brutal, and they're not even kidding you. This run, the Absolute Carnage run, dude, is like my favorite in the King in Black. If there's any new comic book readers who are just like, I don't know where to start and stuff, go check these out. These are awesome. Super, like, they won't let you down, I promise. That being said, I would rate this book on a scale of 1 to 10. I would rate it 9 to 10 easily. This is one of my favorite issues. And I highly recommend it to anybody who likes to read, wants to pick up a comic for the first time. Pick up this book. This is so good. So I think I'm going to wrap this up. I just want to say thank you to all of my followers and everybody who votes every week on the movie or the comic that I'm doing for that week. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. Just stay tuned for more content. Should be coming like every Monday. I'm gonna do every other week, as there's gonna be horror movies one week and then comic book reviews another week. So just stay tuned for all of that. Thanks again, and don't forget, get hip or rot.